Hi there, boys and girls. Ready for story time today? We're going to read If I Ran the Zoo by Dr. Seuss. That's right, I still have more Dr. Seuss stories. He wrote a lot of books. It's a pretty good zoo, said young Gerald McGrew, and the fellow who runs it seems proud of it too. But if I ran the zoo, said young Gerald McGrew, I'd make a few changes. That's what I'd do. The lions and tigers and that kind of stuff they have up here now are not quite good enough. You see things like these in just any old zoo. They're awfully old-fashioned. I want something new. So, I'd open each cage. I'd unlock every pen, let the animals go and start over again. And somehow or other, I think I could find some beasts of a much more unusual kind. He is letting all the animals go because he wants some different animals. A four-footed lion's not much of a beast. The one in my zoo will have 10 feet at least, 5 legs on left and 5 more on the right. Then people will stare and say, "What a sight! This new keeper Gerald's quite keen. That's the gol-darnest lion I ever did seen." A 10-footed lion? My new zoo, McGrew Zoo, will make people talk. My new zoo, McGrew Zoo, will make people gawk at the strangest odd creatures that ever did walk. I'll get, for my zoo, a new sort of hen, who roosts in another hen's topknot. And then another one roosts in the topknot of his, and another in his, and another in his, and so forth, upward and onward. Gee whiz! But that's just a start. I'll do better than that. They'll see me next day in my zookeeper's hat, coming into my zoo with an elephant cat. They'll be so surprised, they'll all swallow their gum, and they'll ask, when they see my strange animals come, where do you suppose he gets things like that from? His animals all have such odd faces. I'll bet he must hunt them in rather odd places. And that's what I'll do, said young Gerald McGrew. If you want to catch beasts you don't see every day, you have to go places quite out of the way. You'll have to go places no others can get to. You'll have to get cold. You'll have to get wet, too. Up past the North Pole, where the frozen winds squeal, I'll go and I'll hunt into my Skiggle-mobile and bring back a family of, what do you know? And that's how my new zoo, McGrew Zoo, will grow. I'll hunt in the mountains of Zomba-Ma-Tant with helpers who all wear their eyes at a slant and capture a fine fluffy bird called the bustard, who only eats custard with a sauce made of mustard. And also a very fine beast called the flustered, who eats mustard with sauce made of custard. I'll catch 'em in caves, I'll catch 'em in brooks, I'll catch 'em in crannies, and I'll catch them in nooks that you don't read about in geography books. I'll catch 'em in countries that no one can spell, like the country of Matapatapapel. In a country like that, if a hunter is clever, he'll hunt up some beasts that you never saw ever. I'll load up 5 boats with a family of jutes. whose feet are like cows but wear squirrel skin coats, and sit like dogs but have voices like goats, except they can't sing the very high notes. And then I'll go down to the wilds of Nantucket and capture a family of lunks in a bucket. Then people will say, "Now I like that boy heaps. His Nuzu, Migruzu, is growing by leaps. He captures them wild and he captures them meek. He captures them slim and captures them sleek. What do you suppose he will capture next week?" I'll capture one tiny. I'll capture one cute. I'll capture a deer that no hunter would shoot. A deer that's so nice he could sleep in your bed. If it weren't for those horns that he has on his head. And speaking of horns that are just a bit queer, I'll bring back a very odd family of deer. A father, a mother, two sisters, a brother, whose horns are connected from one to the other. Whose horns are so mixed up they can't tell them apart, can't tell them where they end, and can't tell where they start. Each deer's mighty puzzled. Sorry. He's never yet found if his horns are hers or the other way round. I'll capture them fat. I'll capture them scrawny. I'll capture the scragglefoot Milligatawny, a high-stepping animal fast as the wind from the blistering sands of the desert of Zend. This beast is the beast that the brave chieftains ride when they want to go fast or to find some place to hide. A Magillatawny is fine for my zoo, and so is a chieftain. I'll bring one back too. Magillatawny. In the far western part of southeast North Dakota lives a very fine animal called the Iota, but I'll capture one who is even much finer in the northeastern west part of South Carolina. When people see him, they will say, "Now by thunder, this Nuzu Migruzu is really a wonder." Most beasts are quite friendly, but still, in some lands, some beasts are too dangerous to catch with bare hands. For those that are ugly and vicious and mean, I'll build a bad animal catching machine. It's rather expensive to build such a kit, but with it a hunter can never get bit. A zoo should have bugs, so I'll capture a thrill, whose legs are snarled up in a terrible snarl. And then I'll go out and capture some chugs, some keen shooter, mean shooter, bean shooter bugs. Whirl, and his legs in a snarl. I'll go to the African island of Yurka and bring back a tizzle-top tufted mazurka, a kind of canary with quite a tall throat. His neck is so long if he swallows an oat for breakfast the first day of April, they say, it has to go down such a very long way that it gets to his stomach the 15th of May. Took a long time to get all the way to his stomach. I'll bag a big bug, who is very surprising, a feller who has a propeller for rising, and zooming around making cross-country hops from Texas to Boston with only 2 stops. Now that sort of thing for a bug is just tops. And when I've caught him, Then the next thing you know, I'll capture a wild tic-tac-toe with X's that win and zeros that lose. He'll look mighty good in this zoo of McGrews. I'll bring back a gusset, a gherkin, a gasket, and also a gooch from the wilds of Nantastic. And 8 Persian princes will carry the basket, but what their names are, I don't know, so don't ask it. So many crazy animals. This is like Dr. Seuss's ABCs. In a cave in Khartoum lives a beast called the Natch that no other hunter has been able to catch. He's hidden for years in the cave with a pout, and no one's been able to make him come out. But I'll coax him with a wonderful meal that's cooked by my cooks in my cooker-mobile. They'll fix up a dish that's just to his taste. 3 chicken croquettes made of Liberty paste, then sprinkled with peanut shucks pickled and spiced, then baked at 600 degrees and then iced. It's mighty hard cooking to cook up such feasts, but that's how the new zoo, McGrew Zoo, gets beasts. This cooking mobile to catch a meal for that creature. The Natch. I'll go to the faraway mountain of Topsk, near the river of Nopsk, and I'll bring back an Obsk, a sort of a thingamabobsk, who eats only rhubarb and corn on the cobsk. Then people flock to my zoo in a mopsk. McGrew, they will say, does a wonderful jobsk. He hunts with such vim and he hunts with such vigor. His new zoo, McGrew Zoo, gets bigger and bigger. And speaking of birds, there's a Russian Poluski who is headsky and redsky and belly is bluesky. I'll get one of them for my Zooski McGrewski. Then the whole town will gasp. Why, this boy never sleeps. No keeper before ever kept what he keeps. There's no telling what that young fellow will do. And then, just to show them, I'll sail to Katru and bring back an Ikach, a Preep, and a Prue, a Nurgle, a Nerd, and Seersucker too. I'll hunt in the jungles of Hippo-no-Hungus and bring back a flock of wild Bippo-no-Bungus. The Bippo-no-Bungus from Hippo-no-Hungus are better than those down in a Dippo-no-Dungus and smarter than those out in Nippo-no-Nungus, and that's why I'll catch them in Hippo-no-Hungus instead of the others in Ningus and Dingus, or Nungus and Dungus, excuse me. And people will say when they see these bips bounding, this zookeeper, new keeper's simply astounding. He travels so far that you'd think he would drop. When do you suppose this young fellow will stop? Is he ever going to stop catching animals for his zoo? Stop? Well, I should, but I won't stop until I've captured the Wisma Madill, the world's biggest bird from the island of Gwark, who only eats pine trees and spits out the bark. And boy, when I get him back home to my park, the whole world will say, young McGrew's made his mark. He's built a zoo better than Noah's whole ark. These wonderful, marvelous beasts that he chooses have made him the greatest of all McGrewses. Wow, they'll all cheer. What this zoo must be worth, it's the gall-darndest zoo on the face of this earth. McGrew's Zoo. Yes, that's what I'd do, said young Gerald McGrew. I'd make a few changes if I ran the zoo. The end. Dr. Seuss's If I Ran the Zoo. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.